Hello, my name is Vahid Taebnia. In my paper, I discussed some of the metaphysical and theological implications of the theory of emergence, which is centered on the idea that as a system acquires more organizational complexity, it begins to exhibit some novel properties or even entities that in some sense transcend its lower level constituents. So by this concept, some scientists and philosophers try to provide an explanation for the interlevel structure of the world and the way it corresponds to the subjects of scientific inquiry, from particle physics up to sociology, in a hierarchy. So of course, such a holistic view of the world of existence raised many philosophical questions. And this is why there are different interpretations of this concept, of course. And I made it clear that my paper only focused on the ontological version of emergentism. Then I argued that the theory of emergence, at least ontological emergence, entails a specific approach to causation as well. In fact, if we compare the relationship between lower and higher level constituents with the relationship between matter and form in the Aristotelian tradition, then we can conclude that the theory of emergence is actually proposing that in any complex system, the basal elements not only prepare the ground for the realization of high level forms, but actually cause their existence. So this idea of cause of existence, of course, faced many ups and downs throughout the history of philosophy and in general causality. So in the second section of my paper, I discussed the development of this concept in the Islamicate philosophical tradition. So I traced it back to Aristotle and his fourfold theory of causation, and then its reception in Avicenna's philosophical theology down to the 17th century philosopher Sadrā. And then I expanded more on Sadrā's approach to the theory of causation, because on the one hand, he argues that the idea of cause of existence cannot be made sense of except through the Neoplatonic concept of emanation, which represents a strong version of top-down causation in the history of philosophy. But on the other hand, there is another important theory in his philosophy, namely substantial motion, that, according to Sadrā, characterizes the nature of material beings. So he argues that in some certain circumstances, such a substantial motion results in the appearance of more complex properties and categories in material substances, such as consciousness, life, etc. So it's quite similar with the theory of emergence in many respects. And then I explained how Sadrā tried to reconcile between the theory of emanation and substantial motion. In fact, he argued that these two opposing causal directions are not only compatible, but also complementary in some sense. Because while the former explains the world in terms of existence, the latter explains it in terms of the mode of existence. So in the final chapter of my paper, I made a comparison between the theory of emergence and Sadrā's theory of causation, and I argued that although both have much in common, the key difference appears when they try to conceptualize the high-level phenomena or emergent phenomena in terms of existence and explain how they come to existence. And this difference, of course, has theological implications. I also concluded that both theories in question are basically metaphysical and not scientific theories, even though the concept of emergence is frequently used in scientific literature, because both have equally taken specific meta-scientific assumptions for granted. And this is why science as such is compatible with both metaphysical frameworks. So I hope you enjoy reading my paper, and thank you very much.